Well, visual storytelling, as you mentioned, is key. Bringing like more visuals into what you tell. So that's the first thing. Validate your own hypotheses. Don't just assume what they are. Like, oh, if I have to grow the community, I have to do this. No, validate this first. Create this as a hypothesis and validate. Second, AI is enhancement. AI is not solution to like, don't become lazy because AI is going to make people lazy. They'll be like,
Thank you so much, Ed, for being on Community Deep Dive by LikeMinds. I think we are very, very thrilled to have somebody like you who has such a diverse and vast experience to come on the show and talk to us about all things community. So thank you so much for taking out the time.
thank you so much. Thanks for the invite.
Ed, I would want to know, and this is something that I ask all my guests. What do you do outside of work? Who is Ed outside of his work and the community work that you have done in the past so many years? What are you doing when you're not working?
Oh shit. Okay, that's a great question, and I'll be very honest. I do a lot of things when I'm not working because I try to balance my work life, with personal life a lot. So I'm a dog father, so I have 2 dogs. I love to go traveling, hiking. I built a camper van to travel around Europe. Stayed in this camper van for like several months. So it was a lot of fun. I love to play music. I love to jam with people who play a bit music as well. So music is also my passion. So I do a lot of things. I wrote a book. So there are several things that are like one-offs, but a lot of things that I try to do when I'm not, in an office or doing some work.
Wow. I think outside of work is also as exciting for you as it's within the office. So thanks for answering that. And I'm going to take some tips about how you do time management and all the other things about writing a book and everything else. Um, I've like gone through your LinkedIn and I've seen the way you also talk about your work and everything. And of course, you were also awarded the Community Professional of the Year in an online community in the year 2022. How does it feel to get this recognition? Did this change anything for you in your life, or did this influence your future projects or aspirations in any way?
Sure. So yes, it does, and I'll share a little bit behind. I think maybe it's something that you and I can relate a lot. We are like fellow immigrants, trying our best, in different countries. Yeah. We want to be, as good as, but sometimes the mindset or just coming as an immigrant, you kind of feel yourself like, am I behind here? Will I ever get to that level? And I've been doing community work for like 12, 13 years. And being recognized and awarded in a global, award ceremony out of San Francisco, like Bay Area, being someone who grew up in Brazil and then lived in Ireland. So I was really far from all of this. It was a recognition that I was like, wow, okay, I'm in the league now. I'm playing with the big players now. So it's great, If people may say like, oh, does it mean anything or not to be awarded? I'm like, to me, it means a lot because of seeing myself like, okay, I'm a peer now. I'm not just like below or like someone behind. So definitely means a lot to me.
Correct. And I also read this somewhere that you mentioned authenticity is one of your core values. Can you talk about how you incorporate authenticity in your work life, and also how has this helped you in your projects, in the work that you do, or in your life as well in general?
Yeah, sure. That comes in different ways, right? So, one of them is just how you are as a person, how you behave, how you offer information, offer help. You see a lot that, especially when you talk about business, people try and find ways that they will win as well. They'll always find a way that, can I help, but also win? And to me, like if you have authenticity, it's just like be yourself, do it, and then you may get the rewards later. You may not even get rewards, and that's okay. You just do the work. Yeah. You go there and help people out. So it's more about like your state of mind, how you behave around things, than necessarily, a structure that like, this is how you build a community in that way with authenticity. It's but more about like how you feel and do things yourself, and then everything else kind of comes around it. Yeah, I would say it's more about that.
Got it. And before I move on to your specific work stints at Wix and currently at Persona as well, I want to know something that's a little broad, which is about community growth and engagement in general. So, based on all the work that you have done in multiple companies, can you talk about some of the key patterns or elements that contribute to community growth and engagement in general?
Yeah, I love to say that every time someone throws the word engagement, a dolphin gets hit by a jet ski in Sri Lanka. So engagement is such a word that's being overused. And I mean, obviously, this is a great question, and I'm not like, bashing here on you. It's more about sometimes people are like, oh, how do I create engagement? I'm like, well, it's pretty easy. You create something that's highly contradicting. So that's how you build engagement, not necessarily a good one, right? So if you post a debate of something, or if you say something that goes against a lot of principles from people, it will generate engagement. So it's the reason I say that is that sometimes people have to be careful with the word or the metric for the metric. It's really, how does that tie into my business, right? So I'm going to bring another example. Join Hampton from Sampar or Chief.com. These are communities that growth comes at an expense because they want to be exclusive. So you don't want to actually grow that fast. So again, what does growth mean for them, right? So it's really important when we think about strategies, really like what's the business goal and how can community be a key contributor to that goal? And if that means that the product is around exclusivity, growth is not necessarily like the biggest thing. And maybe you're talking about sensitive topics. Maybe engagement comes in different ways that you other than pure engagement for the sake of like people just chit-chatting. Again, I think it's been years I didn't build a community around chit-chat because that's not good engagement. I don't think I have time to chit-chat with anyone. So I think it's when you think about patterns, it's more about business goal. What's the intent of your strategy, of your community strategy there, and then that will lead into eventually growth, eventually engagement.
Got it. And talking about so many years of work that you have done in the community industry, what is one trend or shift that you are currently seeing that's happening? Anything in particular that you would want to talk about or mention about?
Yeah, I'll try and break 3 in 1 very quickly. Creator community. So a creator community means it's centered around people who have influence rather than around businesses. Second, a lot of decentralization. So not Web3 decentralization. I mean, people are everywhere. And sometimes I get caught, talking to a friend on Instagram and then suddenly we're on WhatsApp and then the other time we're, I don't know, in an SMS. It's crazy how you shift across platforms and not even realize that. And that's becoming even more common. So I feel that this is going to be a big thing around community. And then third, it's more about building high intention cohorts, niche. So again, maybe 2 of us here have like prescription glasses. Is there a community there for us? Not sure, but maybe if you are a designer of prescription glasses, maybe there is a community for you. So what's the niche out of everything that we're working on? So I think these are 3 big trends that I'm seeing.
Got it. And one of the trends that I have personally observed right now in the past few months and years is the rise of in-app communities, and especially a consumer tech or a B2C or any product of that sort, if they already have an app, I'm seeing that they are incorporating an in-app community. Have you observed this? Do you think there would be more such communities that would come up in the coming few years?
Sort of. Not sure if that's necessarily a trend. Here at Persona, we actually have some in-app, let's call it, or like in-product experiences that are community experiences. That's very different from in-app forum, right? I think that's a very different thing. I think a lot of people are building social elements into in-app and calling it in-app communities. To me, this feels more like you're building additional triggers to engage your audience. Yeah. Are you building a community? Are they creating like common stories, common goals, common activities among themselves, or are they interacting with certain content that you are generating? So I don't know if I would call this is like a one-off, like an umbrella trend, but there are companies building more in-app or in-product experiences that are around community building. And I feel this is great because one of the biggest challenges we have seen in the last maybe 8-9 years was moving off this separate, like this siloed community platform into a more like enhanced and in-app, in product experience where you don't have a second credential, you don't have to have a second URL in any of that, right? It's just like you're in the product, and if you want to engage, you engage. So that's definitely a huge thing. But it comes with, certain brands can do it really well. Certain brands will probably struggle a lot to do that.
Yeah. And let me come to like questions about with respect to Persona and what you're currently doing. Tell us about how you are building a community at Persona. How big is the team? How do you run the operations for it? And just general know-how about the entire community at Persona.
Yeah, well, Persona is our startup. We offer identity verification to brands, right? So we're a B2C product, and we are embedded within their tech stack. So we're invisible for most people. People don't even know Persona exists. End users, they don't know at all. I mean, it would be rare to have someone who paid attention to a flow and then, oh, I saw something here, that's Persona. So for us, community, well, first of all, being a startup, it's just me. We're a small team, as a startup. Yet that doesn't mean that we cannot do things. We're doing a lot of things. We're building podcasts. We're building a lot of content. We built the Persona Academy to help educate members. We're building some in-product experiences mentioned to your point on like how people can interact between themselves. We do a lot of events. We do a lot of meetups. And that's all myself. So it's more about like how do you become intentional in the work you do, right? And I love the fact that because it's a startup, we can try a lot of things. So the way I work here is we have several hypotheses and we have to validate them, right? So can we build something that will validate this hypothesis, yes or no? And if it didn't work, we'll move into something else. So that's why I'm doing a lot of different things. None of them are like super fleshed out. I don't have a team or super strong process around that. It's just that being able to do all of that and understand, okay, what's working, what's not working, is the joy of working at a startup as opposed to like maybe big tech, which I came from, and having like all this, processes in place before you even get started.
Let's talk about the difference between like your current role and how it was at Wix. And I've read some of your LinkedIn post about how the work that you did at Wix as the head of community resulted into the reduction in the support cost, generating user-generated content by a super user program and multiple other things. Tell us a few difference about the team structure, the ops, and also the kind of work that was at Wix and what's at Persona currently.
Yeah, sure. So the biggest, when we talk about like customer support, cost reduction was mostly at Zynga. I worked there from 2010 to 14. And it was a huge company, we're like growing a lot. We're probably like 2,000 employees. I mean, it's huge in comparison to like a lot of other companies and where they are today. We had maybe 300 million active users across all the games, and we had to find ways to support them at scale. And it was obviously humanly impossible to offer support to 300 million members with a pretty small customer support team. So engaging through communities was one of the ways. We expanded like this to insane levels of growth. We're able to help thousands and thousands of members every single day, and that generated a lot of savings for the company. At Dropbox, and at Zynga, the team was essentially based on games and locales. So we had maybe 15 people across the globe. With Dropbox, it was just myself. I worked there from 2014 to 18. And Dropbox had already like 400 million users when I joined. So it was insane. And then the community was, okay, out of 400 million people, who cares enough to be part of a community and do something? So that's when I built the super user program, engaged a lot of them, helped us scale education, support, 10x, 100x even in certain cases. So it was great for us, great to see the result of this. And then at Wix, very different, right? Wix is the community of Wix is who is building sites on Wix for themselves and for the others. So these are the partners. Yeah. So these are people who are freelancing, building sites as agencies and whatnot. So how can we offer them value to make more money, to charge more, to be better at negotiating? So community has a very clear business win for them. So again, very different. And then a persona is more about how do I implement quickly? How do I make sure I'm being compliant? How do I make sure that what I'm doing here makes sense? Am I creating too much friction for my business because I'm adding identity verification? It's more technical. It's less, I'd say, less sexy, but it's also very important, especially now if like in the era of deepfake scams getting like even more prominent. So building trust in your network is highly important. So it's not only compliance anymore, it's about trust. So the community got like into a different flavor. So yeah, very different companies, very different sizes, very different challenges to solve.
Which work have you liked the most out of all the work that you have done?
In all of them, I had a lot of learnings. I think Zynga was new to me. I didn't know a lot of what I was doing, but it was great because it was gaming and all. At Dropbox, the reason why I loved is because I matured a lot. It was huge as a company. Plus, I was an active user. I loved Dropbox. So it was really easy for me to get going. So each company has its own values, like Wix. I had a website on Wix years ago, so great. Persona, I never used Persona, but the team is so cool and so nice, and they're so smart that I'm like, I want to be hanging around these guys here because they're so intelligent and they're building such a challenging thing. So for different reasons, I love them all. Just not maybe VMware was not sexy at all. Plus, I had no idea about the product. I was really, oh my God, this was like different game, different level. Not saying I'm against, I love the people there, but it was just like a hard product to understand.
Yeah. I have experienced building and being the sole person who's running the community for a SaaS product entirely, and I very much understand how it must have been for you. And I somewhere read that you really enjoy visual storytelling, and it's like one of your superpowers. What are some other superpowers that have been useful for you in like being the one person community member? I'm sure understanding of social media like really helped a lot, and understanding of events and how do you connect with people, the meetups and all those things. But what are some of the superpowers that you have that have helped you in your community journey?
Yeah, sure. Well, visual storytelling, as you mentioned, is key. Bringing like more visuals into what you tell. But I'm a little bit of like a ADHD, so being like solo in what I do can be great for like ideation. I can come up with a lot of different ideas and start things. I'm terrible at following up and organizing myself. So it's almost like you're like a mini entrepreneur, a mini founder within a company when you work by yourself. And I think the fact that I've learned how to deal with my struggles is great, because then I applied this learning of like my personal life and way of being into businesses. So I can, figure something out. I can help creatively fix a problem. I can build things without spending like a single dollar. And that's great, because this comes from like this entrepreneurial mindset of trying doing different things and making them work, being smart about, networks and all. So yeah, I think this is what helps me a lot with the work I do.
Wow. I think that's a really good, superpower, that having an entrepreneurial mindset. I have my last question, and this is really, really important, because this is going to go to thousands of community managers and community builders who want to hear this. What is, let's say, 3 or 2 pieces of advice that you would want to give to the upcoming set of community builders and managers? I know you mentioned about the few trends, but what are some things that you would want to advise them to the upcoming set of builders?
Yeah, if they're new to all of this, it's what I say to a lot of people who are getting started with like work in general. They're like, what degree do I go for? Like, what job do I get? And community is such a broad term that I would say, try a lot of things, create a lot of hypotheses and try and validate them all. Don't just come up with like things you read, because a lot of people will read someone's post on LinkedIn or someone's blog post or whatever, and they're like, oh, that's what I have to do. It's not. It's not. I'll be very honest. I'm terrible at following up with my friends in the community space, and God forgive me, them all. Like, I love them all, but I can't read like a single framework they create. I can't follow a single thing they say, just because I'm terrible with that. But that helped me, because I have to create my own version of things and validate my own hypothesis. So that's the first thing. Validate your own hypotheses. Don't just assume what they are. Like, oh, if I have to grow the community, I have to do this. No, validate this first. Create this as a hypothesis and validate. Second, AI is enhancement. AI is not solution to, like, don't become lazy, because AI is going to make people lazy. They'll be like, oh, I need an idea for a post. ChatGPT, please write me a post. This is BS. Be smart, man. Try things first before you ask ChatGPT, because it's only replicating things that other people did. So be smart about what you want to get out of it to make it enhance your work, not to make it do your work. So that's second thing. And then maybe a third one. Let me see. Don't rely on like tech or people. A lot of people are like, oh, if I hire this other person, then I'll be able to do this. Or if I get this specific knowledge, then I'll be able to do that. Don't. Dude, seriously, like this is another BS thing from the industry, because like everything, they want to make you get engaged into different platforms or tools. Nothing against them all, because they all help, but they're enhancement, just like as AI are. So if you know what you got to do and you're engaging them in whatever tool, it could be like Facebook groups, can be WhatsApp, doesn't matter. Then if you're like, oh, now I need to move into the next level, then you think about a tool that will enhance your work. But you don't start with like just building a tool that's like $300, $1,000 a year in a multi-year contract. That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, start doing the work, validating hypothesis, use AI as enhancement, and go for it.
I love we touched upon AI in some manner or other, and I'm really happy about that. But thank you so much, Ed, for doing this conversation. I know we could have gone for hours, but I loved how much we talked about and all the insights that you've shared. Probably this helps us to, park few questions for future. Maybe we'll meet again at some of the events or some other episode altogether, and we'll cover more questions and more insights in the future one. But thank you so much for doing this, and thank you so much for giving your time today.
Yeah, for sure. And people want to see part two. Like whenever you publish this, just comment like, I want to see part two, and then we go and record again.
Definitely. I'm sure you're going to see some of those comments. But yeah, thank you so much, Ed, for doing this.